Hey everyone, and welcome to tonight's Let's Talk Live here on Music Marketing TV. For those of you that can join me tonight here in this live stream, thank you so much for your time. I know that we're reaching out to thousands of people. We have thousands of subscribers. And if you're not able to join us now, don't worry, it'll live on in YouTube history where you can leave your creative comments below. But for now, we are live. So yes, thank you for joining me. And we're going to be talking about Sonible's new amazing plugin called Smart Limit and why it's fast becoming, dare I say, even an industry standard. I mean, there's so many people just raving about this amazing plugin. The transparency, the utilities, the ease of use, and whether you're mastering or mixing or doing post-production or music work, it just seems to really apply to any genre of music. So we're going to dig right into that tonight and have some fun. All right. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, please consider becoming part of our Music Marketing TV family here on YouTube. You'll have access to hundreds, if not thousands, of amazing quality tutorial videos all about audio production for free. That's right. Just become part of our family today. You won't regret it. And plus, you won't miss out on this one and future live streams coming up. Again, that's Music Marketing TV on YouTube. All right. So with that in mind, why don't we dive right in and start having a little bit of fun? Now, what we're looking at here is Smart Limit by Sonible. If you have the plugin, I would love to hear from you. Maybe chime in here in the chat room. Let me know how you're using it or some tips or techniques that you have in mind. You know, let's keep that active. If not, if you're joining us later on, then leave your creative comments below about it. But I'd love to just hear how it's working for you and how you think and feel about it, because I'm having such an amazing time with this. Real positive experience, if you will. Now, I opened up a demo session here in Studio One, another amazing application. And what we're looking at here is a Smart Limit plugin. Now, I've got a couple of demo tracks here just for, you know, testing the plugin out with some different variety of genres of music and styles and ideas and things. So I put Smart Limit here on my master bus. Now, another thing I love about plugins these days is it's a resizable GUI. I just love that. So feel free to make that any size you want and have all the extra love. So Smart Limit, it's an advanced true peak limiter, but it's what they call a content aware limiter. Hence, that's where the AI comes in. It's a smart limiter. So built into the software is a lot of the work and the engineering and the time that professionals like us would take into, you know, like developing what works and what doesn't. They've engineered all of that time and effort into the plugin, so it gives us an advantage in advance. And I really think that's cool. And we're going to walk through that workflow on how to get started with this, but we're going to get a little granular too, really get into the nitty-gritty quite a bit. But to start off with, I love how advanced plugins like this give you so much, but try and successfully often do keep things simple. So what Sonible says is that there's 3 discrete advantages to this. You've got advanced results in seconds. That's right, real-time results. You don't have to play the audio all the way through to see what your loudness curve is going to be. You can get them in real time, which is cool. And sound shaping tools. And you can get results literally in seconds. And I'll show you how right now. So why don't we take a listen to our first track here. It's a house track. Now, let me also remind everybody that we're working with a limiter here, and the job of a limiter is to make things loud. So if you're listening and working at home, depending on your listening environment, please be very careful. I'll do my best to control some of the levels here, obviously, but be mindful that things will get loud, because the advantages of limiters, especially with Smart Limiter, is kind of the holy grail of limiting. You want to have loudness, but transparency. In other words, you don't want to hear the limiting effect or the compressors overworking or, you know, pumping the audio when you don't want it to. You want transparency. And I tell you, you know, Sonible has done a great job with that. Let's take a listen to this first track before we get started. And you can test our speakers at home. Okay, so we've got typical house style music. I chose this one because it's got a lot of low end, and I want to hear the tonal effect that is going to how it's going to affect the low end in this track. And it's got some really nice crisp highs too. So why don't we open up Smart Limit right now so we can see it again. And let's talk about workflow. Now let's do exactly what Sonible says. We're going to literally set it, check it, and publish it in this real world example. And then we're going to backpedal and talk about advanced workflow, if you will. So at the top here, you'll see we've got some basic settings. Smart Limit. And here's where the AI part comes in, the heavy lifting, if you will. This is where you can choose the profile for the genre of music. Now, these have been painstakingly crafted to help give you a leg up when it comes to mastering, but not only with perceived loudness, but with the transparency, as I mentioned before. And you could choose from any one of these genres. Plus, you could load your own reference. If you're working with an artist and they're a really big fan of a particular style of music, you could load a reference track from that style of music to give you an advantage in your finalized audio. So it'll sound more like the audio that they want. Plus, it results in a happy customer, repeat business. So it's just one way to look at that. You can load a reference track. But for this one, let's stick with electronic. Let's go to house. And I'm going to load a house profile. All you have to do now is play the audio, and I'm going to put it in standby. And this is where it's going to listen. Now remember, this isn't arbitrary. Every different style of house music, it's going to listen uniquely and apply that AI attention to it. It's not just the same preset for all. It's actually going to listen to what's going on in this song and apply settings for this song, not a general style. Really amazing. All right, so let's play the audio and let's trigger the profile. And here you can see Smart Limit is listening to the audio as the green bar measures our progress. Never ceases to amaze me. All right, that was really cool. Now, it did get loud. I warned you. Okay. This is so cool. So, that's the set part. Now, you can go in there, obviously, and modify and tweak this to your heart's content, which we will do in a minute. But I want to keep it simple. Let's set it. We set it. Now, we want to check it, okay? And here's our loudness monitoring. If you don't see it, right here, you can open the disclosure window right there by clicking on that arrow. And this is going to give us insight into the loudness and the dynamics and to help us meet a target, which right now we have set to any one of these. Spotify, for example, which is minus 14 LUFS. Okay, and the crosshairs here, which we'll explain more in a bit too. So I want to press quality check while it's playing the audio, and it's going to actually, again, utilize that AI power to listen and quality check it for Spotify standards. And then it's going to give you insight into how to tweak it to possibly make it better. Let's try that now. There, as easy as that. So what's it telling us about our limit, our ceiling? The limit is going to be the brick wall limit. Audio will not go past that. And we're going to get into the effects of what happens when it does in a second. It says the peak limit looks good for Spotify. Great. The input level looks good again. And you can see here that the crosshair, we're going for minus 14, which is right about here. It's a little loud because you see Spotify will turn its track down by 3.6 dBs. That's all though. It's not going to compress it down. It's just going to take the volume knob and turn it down. So the quality, the perceived loudness, and the dynamics and the tonality are untouched. It's simply going to turn it down by 3.6 decibels. So this is good. This is the check part. We set it, we check it. Now you can save your work and publish it. As easy as that. That's what I really appreciate about advanced technology like this, that it should make things easier. And, Smart Limit is a perfect example of that. Okay, so let me close my quality check. And let's talk about a little bit now about what's going on here within the plugin. I closed my loudness monitoring. We don't need to see that at the moment. But let's start at the top again with the profiles here. You have universal. So if you're not sure what genre you're working with, this is a great one to use in general. Now, you'll see here to the right of the plugin, we have these what I call states, and you can delete them. Now, right now we chose electronic house. What if I wanted to try a different profile for this? All I need to do is select number 2, which is blank at the moment. Choose a different one. Let's say universal, for example. This one here was on electronic house. Number 2 could be on universal. And then we can preview and apply smart limit again on this using the AI technology. So this is an excellent way to start A/Bing your work and giving you choices. Okay, now we can switch between the two settings. Here's one. You can see it's at, what's really changed here is the gain is at 9.9, and on 2, it's a little lower, 9.6. So Universal did a pretty good job. It also has a release on auto. Let's check this one, auto as well. Now you can take this one and start making some changes to it. There's a really great feature with the limit, and let me talk about this for a second. Is when you're working with the brick wall limiter, you see it comes down to about -6. Smart Limit, what they've done is they've actually thought forward with this, is that a lot of engineers I know, mastering engineers, will never bring this below 0.0, and that's respectable, that's fine. However, Smart Limit thought ahead. If you do want to bring the limit ceiling down, it will allow for some softer peak transients when they hit that limit. So it won't be as hard. I read that in the manual, which I definitely recommend downloading and checking that out. So you can test me on that one. If I get it right, leave it in the comments below. But I really think that's great forward thinking, because if you do need to adjust the limit and the transients hit those, which I'll describe in a second, they won't be as cut off. It'll preserve a little bit of the natural roundness, which is simulating analog gear actually. All right, so let's talk about what happens here. Now, that's the ceiling limit, okay? Let's go back to our states for a second before I get carried away. Is another unique feature about these states is if you wanted to, let's say you had house here and it worked really great. You can select this and drag it on to another state, let's say 3. Now you have an exact copy of 1 on 3. So you can have a variation of that one, if you will, that you set parameters manually. Just like that. So here's the original one. Here's the one in universal. And here's the one that's on house setting with our manual tweaks there. And it's as easy as that. So you're able to work with this really effortlessly. Now, we also have some, you could save your presets here if you want. Just give it a name, save it. Be mindful of where it goes in your hard drive. It's different on Windows and Mac. And it's both Windows and Mac compatible, of course, so it sounds brilliant on both. Now let's talk a little bit about the next range coming down here from left to right. We got reset. Let's go to number 3. I'm going to choose reset. Now, if you hit reset, it's going to, here's another tip for you. It won't reset this initial state. It'll reset all 3 of these states. So be really mindful of that. If you love what's happening on 1, 2, and 3, and you hit reset, all 1, 2, and 3, all of this work will be reset. So be really careful of that, okay? You've got a heads up there. Instead, below that, you see you have a little trash can, so you can choose discard, and it's gone. Simple as that, okay? So use reset as a global, all-encompassing reset, and use the just delete button here under the states to delete the unique state that you created, okay? Now, we also have bypass. So let's go back to our original house and let's do a little A/B now with the bypass switch. Here's before. And here's after. Very cool. So the reset and bypass are pretty close to each other, so be very careful. But when you do, if you hit reset, it does give you an extra warning window, so don't worry about that. And going all the way to the right here, you have constant gain and delta. This is really cool. When you activate constant gain, it's actually going to level match these parameters that we have here in state 1 that we're using with the original audio level. So you're only referencing what's happening to the tonality, if you will, with the limiter's effect on the tonality of the settings. So by hitting constant gain, the level will be the same when we use the bypass here, but you're only going to hear, you're going to listen for other things, other tonal frequency artifacts. So here it is. Let's bypass the plugin one more time. And then I'll take bypass off, but I have constant gain activated so the level won't jump up again. But listen for tonal differences, frequencies. Smart limit is now active, but constant gain is on. I'll switch it off. Ready? I'll put it on. Here we go. Okay, so let me listen carefully. Okay, so right off the bat, I can hear that it's really, seems to really be beefing up that low end and adds a little bit more sizzle to the highs. I like that, but again, I'm not sure if we got some chats coming in. Oh, great! I love this. I love you guys chatting already. This is awesome. So that's a great way to reference what's happening with those frequencies. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and show you a really cool tool. Down here, you've got distortion monitoring. Now, when you start applying limiting, there's going to be a type of distortion that's accepted. And what I mean is that frequencies are going to be excited in certain ranges. By opening up Distortion Monitor, you're going to see a little micro mini graph of all the frequency spectrum with highlights, red highlights of areas to, have focus on. Check out this little graph, mini graph down here. You can see those light colors right there. Okay, I have constant gain on, so it's not too loud, but you can still see the effect. Now, I know myself and a lot of people, one of our biggest complaints is we actually love this, so we wish it was a little bit bigger. Sonible, if you're watching. Maybe you could overlay this with this beautiful large screen in the future. It's because we love it, Sonible. All right. Now, let's go to delta. Now, this is what I was talking about, how when a transient, and you'll see as the peaks go by that they're being flattened. But the remaining audio that goes over has an audible artifact to it when it's being removed. The delta is going to allow you to listen to the possible artifacts and distortion from pushing your limiter possibly too far, thus helping you maintain transparency. Check it out. As I activate this, you're going to start hearing just the overs over the limit line that's could give you possible issues. Should sound like little crackles in your left and right ear. That's those peaks. Check it out. Watch this. See these peaks as they go over and they're being cut? Well, that remaining little bits right there are the overs, those transients that you're hearing. Now, if I bring this down, you see it goes away because I lowered the gain. Now, let's push it a little bit. Ready for effect. And you'll hear more of the instrumentation coming in now. So if you were to render this file at this setting, you would be introducing a lot of distortion and hurting all of those frequencies that are supposedly going over that limit line and being cut off. So the delta, I'm telling you, is a really handy tool to help you listen deeper into what the effect is doing here. All right, let me go back to this setting. Let's go a little bit lower here. And again, as I mentioned before, a little bit is acceptable. I understand, because you have to take the good with the great. But having these tools is really indispensable. Let me go to next. All right, let's move on a little bit. We talked about states, talked about saving presets, constant gain. We've got delta here, bypass, reset. Here's our graphical window. Now, again, here's our limit. We talked about this a little bit already. And here's our gain. Okay, now, with the gain, you can see, bring it down 0, upwards of 24 dBs. That's really, really cool. Now, the attack time, You might be asking yourself why a limiter will have an attack time, but as it says here, it sets the attack time after which the smooth release of the gain reduction sets in. So it's not an initial attack time like you would consider for a compressor. It's a individual attack time for a specific tool here within this plugin. All right. And again, here's the gain that we can drag up and down. And then the release, if you don't want to set it on auto, because auto is going to automatically adapt itself to the characteristics of the input signal that's coming in. And it's going to help do it for you automatically, leveraging the AI again, which I think is great. But again, if you want to do things manually, you could just select that, take it off, and you can set the release independently by dragging and dropping. Okay? Just like that, which is the same you can do here with the attack time. All right? I typically like to keep it on auto. I've having really good results with it because the power of the AI has just really been stellar on this. And when they said you set it, check it, and publish it, they really weren't kidding. It's amazing. Now, here's another tip. When you do run your audio through one of these advanced parameters to help jumpstart your limiting, it will unlock, if you will, it'll open these characters, these personality knobs down here. So if you do it manually, you won't get access to these. They won't become available to you. But if you do run it, even under Universal, it will unlock these for you. Oh, and I should mention that this button here, if you click this, it'll automatically, as it says, it'll return the Smart State button automatically to the Learn Parameters. So that's another little tip right there. That's just not a logo right there. That actually does something. These days in plugins, you have to kind of hover on everything, right? Well, there you go. Now, let's talk about the personality knobs here. The style is going to kind of, it's going to show how aggressively your audio is hitting the limiter. So let's say you want more of a soft or a hard, maybe knee, if you would. So for softer music, maybe acoustic, orchestral, piano music maybe, vocal, I would do more softer. For hard, electronic house music, rock, something really pumping, anything at all, you could drive it harder like this. So why don't we do an example of this? And with this style of music, well, let's see what it sounds like. So everything is set the way it is here. Let me go back to State Universal and bring my gain down just a little bit. And let's audition the style knob here for the how aggressively it's hitting the limiter. I'm going to start all the way here on -100. Very subtle, if you will. I did hear it when I got to about 70 or so here. Now, through YouTube in this medium, I'm not sure what the quality is going to be like, but, you know, it's the process we really want to highlight here. The song's pretty hard as it is. I think I could feel comfortable leaving it somewhere right about there. Because it already feels really pumping. It was mixed that way. Now, the saturation is going to boost what's called your perceived loudness. Starts at 0 and goes to 100. Now, you may think to yourself, wow, why don't you always set it to 100? It's because this is audio production. We have the art of listening. Depending on your mix and how aggressively things were mixed before you're finalizing, your mastering, and your limiting, you may not need much, like in this case. But let's audition this one. Here we go. Bring it down, ready? Again, in this example, it's a little subtle, but hopefully you heard that things thickened up just a little bit. Again, that's really cool. I don't feel I need much of it, but I'm going to boost it up to about 10. All right. Now, the balance is going to add what they call a little bit, I love this, a subtle polish, if you will. Perhaps maybe it'd be the equivalent of like a sonic maximizer, right? Or an exciter or something like that. Let's bring that to 0 and let's audition the spectral polish here, if you will. Again, this mix is pretty spot on as it is. But again, it's the process we want to highlight here. Now the bass control, This song has a lot of bass, this track. If you really increase this, it'll really drive the low end, really fatten it up for you. And if you're working with a track that maybe needs a little help with the low end and you want to attenuate that in your finalizing stage, well, this is the perfect knob for you. Let's check it out. Wow. Maybe some of you are listening in your studios with subs. I'm about to rattle your Grammys off the wall. Zero. But notice something. Even though I turned that bass control out to 100 and I could feel the bass becoming more energized, that's the only word I can think of at the moment. I really feel it becomes more energized and more bass, more awesome. It's still really, what? Transparent. Still loud, but still really transparent. Hence the whole heavy lifting is being done for you. A lot of that audio engineering, years of hard work by passionate people listening and working with quality audio at a time and putting that, building it, programming it into these plugins, give us this level of detail and awesomeness. So I don't need 100 here. I will leave it up a little bit. And this could be our settings right here. So we talked about the profiling and the states. We talked about the limiter and the gain, distortion metering, constant gain to delta, and what some of these knobs do here for us. Hey, it is a pretty good track, right? If some of you are Studio One users, I have every DAW under the sun. This track actually comes with Studio One, so it's part of the loops. So when you buy Studio One Pro, you get access to gigabytes and gigabytes of loops and audio for you to work with and experiment with. So there's a plug for Studio One. Thank you guys. And definitely check that out. So if you need some audio to work with, there you go. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about our loudness monitoring section. Now, what this is going to do here is it's actually, I guess it's kind of like three systems in one. You have the top here, but you also have this graphical interface. You have your loudness monitoring here on the left and your dynamics monitoring here on the bottom going from left to right. But the histogram here is kind of neat. You see these crosshairs right here? Looks like a video game. What's going to happen is the closer you get to your target loudness, let's say Spotify, the crosshairs are going to narrow. And you're going to see them target on center. And that's going to be relative to the limit and the gain. So we're going to have the limit and the gain. So they're going to just meet like that. When you have everything set perfect, this should be, let's say in this example, minus 14, anywhere about here in the middle. Because this is the go lane. This is where you want your dynamics and your loudness for this reference monitoring. Let's change this actually. Let's go to iTunes. Or let's go to Amazon Music as minus 19. There you go. Or even the AES standard. You can see that's minus 18. So let's go back to Spotify. Let's play the audio and you'll see the target moving. And you can adjust it manually if you need to. Okay, and you see these little gray little arrows following? That's obviously a visual aid. It's going to move around and help you with your targeting. And it really zoomed in there. I want to get more into that in a minute, but watch as I adjust the gain, what happens to this parameter. See how it fell below the standard where we want it to be? And it's also out of bounds. So my point is, this target is exactly what it is. It's helping you target your loudness. All right, let's see if we can get it right on right where we want it to be. A little goes a long way. right there. You see where it went? Everything went right in the middle, right there. Now, I know you're thinking minus 14 here, but it's all right. This is a spot-on target loudness. Oh, we'll see. Why don't we quality check it? And this may be the only limiter where I'm not afraid to adjust the ceiling height, the limit here. Because again, they built into it a way to soften the peaks. Definitely look into that. Look that up. And, you can double check me, fact check me if you want to leave some creative comments below. Be kind. Okay, so let's open quality check and let's let the AI spot check this for Spotify. That's a pun. All right, so it says the peak level looks good, the input level looks good. Spotify will turn us down by 2.6 dBs. When we originally did this with the house setting here under our presets here, our profiles, it was actually about 3.6 dBs. So we kind of tweaked it in manually, if you will. And again, when it says Spotify is going to turn it down, it's not going to compress it down. It's just going to turn the volume of it overall. So the perceived loudness is there, transparency is there, and the punch and drive. Everything that you said here with the character knobs, the personality knobs, is also maintained. All right. So let me close this. And you can see it's kind of fun, actually, when you're adjusting the limit and the gain a little bit to target and how it really narrowed in there. And you stop. I have to say it. You stop when it looks good. I know this is audio production. I always stress listening first, and I always will. But this is a visual aid, let's be honest. And it does work. You can see the dynamics, by the way. The dynamics peak is spot on. So I still have dynamics. That's my transparency. I still have loudness. That's my punch and drive. And it spot checks it for me. I'm good to go for Spotify. I could publish this right now and feel confident it'll hold its own next to any other song in its audio category. All right. Let's try a different track here. All right. This is what I'm going to do. Let's reset. Press reset, reset. Everything went back to normal. You can see I mentioned about the states and everything. Okay, let's try a different track. Let's have a little fun. Why don't we push this a little bit? And again, be mindful of your ears. I just have a nice track here with some synths. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because I want to show you how transparent this can be thanks to the artificial intelligence built into it. Now, as you remember, I put the smart limit here on my master bus here. Let me bypass it. Let's take a quick listen to this synth together. Now, there's kind of layers of synth sounds going on here, but it's very fast and transient. That's why I chose this for this demo. But there's also some reverb, if you will, on this too. So let's see what happens to all these sonic characteristics. There's a little bit of a low note, a high note, there's a fast transient here, and there's some reverb. Let's take it off bypass. Now, if you don't know what profile to use here, why don't we just use universal again? Or you can come down to electronic, EDM, house, techno if you want, pop. Let's go to universal and hit the activate button, and let's profile this. There, it's exactly what I wanted to demonstrate. This got turned up. Look at this, 21 dBs. All right, this got turned up. And I'm really impressed at the transparency. Yes, it is louder like it's supposed to be, but it's also doing something. I can hear more of the reverb, a little bit of an echo there. Let's take a listen again. Here's before. And here's after. Watch your ears. Now you can see the green and the red where they're overlapping. There's a lot being turned down here. There's a lot being taken out. In fact, let's go back, because repetition is good, and let's activate delta. Let's listen to the transients that are being clipped off, the little spots of audio here. There should be quite a few. That's the delta. That's without. That's the delta. Let's bring the gain down. And as these points go over the limit line, you're going to hear the artifacts of that. Here they're coming in. So there's quite a bit being removed here that you're losing, but it still sounded pretty darn good, I have to admit. Let's open up our distortion metering and take a look at this. Yeah, I can see how bright some of these frequency bands are. I can't wait till this is bigger. All right, and that's with the delta on. Let's see it without. Before. It's actually doing something really nice to that little bit of rhythmic echo that is baked into this synth pad and the reverb. I kind of like the sound of that. So what we did here in this example is I pushed the limiter quite a bit, 22.6 dBs. That's a lot, and still sounded pretty darn good. I'm really, really impressed by that. So a lot of this has to do with leveraging artificial intelligence. The plugin is clearly doing a lot of heavy lifting, if you will, for us. But why shouldn't it? I mean, you know, we live in a good time. Plugins never cease to amaze me. That's why I just love software. And this really inspires me to want to be creative and start using it on more and more projects. You know, I do film work, but I love music. And if you come back to our loudness standards, you can see that there's some broadcast standards here too, including Netflix and HBO. So it doesn't matter if you're just into music, anything at all, post-production, you name it, I would feel confident using this almost anywhere at all. Let's go to a full band song. Let's go to reset again. I'm going to reset it. There we go. And I want to show you a really cool trick here. Let me mute this. I had a bass line prepared here, but why don't we go straight to a band track? Some of you might be familiar with this track. It came free with a demo session with another DAW, but it's a really cool track, and it just sounds great. Let's take a listen to it without Smart Limit on. Here we go. I'll bypass it. So that's how it opens up. But you can see it really kicks in right around there, right? Let's see. I'll go right about there. Okay. Now, the reason I want to show you this is when you talk about analyzing the audio here and selecting from one of these genres, where do you sample your audio from? And that's an important question. Because what if your song starts out differently than it ends, which it normally will? Well, a handy little trick is obviously to start it in one area, stop the analyzer, and then analyze it at a different section, which is what we're going to do now. I'll show you how to do it. Let's go to rock alternative. I'll set that as our parameter to analyze it, and check it out. Ready? Stop it, come to a different part of the song, and then keep it going. So there, we're able to analyze 2 sections of the song. I've done upwards of about 3, but what I would probably recommend doing as an audio professional is I probably would use one of these categories, like rock alternative, and then automate the changes in my DAW of choice. Not to say that this method wouldn't work for you, but I love automation. I'm a big fan of automation. So it's just another way to do the same thing. There's so many different ways in audio production. So let's take a look at what it came up for us. -1, 11. Okay. Let's put this one on Amazon Music because it's about -19. No, let's give AES some love. Yes. Okay, let's listen to it again, bypassed. Remember, this is loud. It does get loud because that's what it's supposed to do. Let's kick it in. Ready? Now, depending on your mix already, if you hear something, for example, that the personality knobs down here, the style, saturation, balancing, bass can't fix, then obviously you'd have to go back and re-EQ something in your mix. So again, there's always more ways to do something. But this is hitting it kind of loud. Let me bring this down and let's do this ourselves. There. Now, I forgot to mention here, by the way, at the top of our loudness meters, we do have the loudness. It is reading it in real time. I know I mentioned that way early in this live stream. Think about it. It's actually giving you the loudness measurement in real time. Some applications, you have to listen to the entire file all the way through. But with Smart Limit, it's reading it in real time in the moment. So you're getting real results wherever your playhead is. That's really cool. Here's our loudness range and our dynamics. Now I want to point something out here called a channel link. Now, this isn't just, sitting here doing nothing. You can actually change what this does. And if you bring it up to 100%, it's going to apply the equal limiting to both your left and right channels. If you bring it all the way down to 0, it's going to let each channel breathe a little bit more naturally, okay? So that's another tip for you. Keep in mind, if you're working, for example, with orchestral music, jazz, any kind of maybe genre where you want a little breath and you don't want to, have a little bit more freedom in your stereo image, then take the channel link here and you can adjust this in real time. Even if it's subtle, it's going to make a difference. By default, I think it comes at 75. So all the way up, it's going to lock it in, which might be really good for like that house music we were listening to earlier. But for something like this, I might actually bring it down to maybe around 50 or 60. Let's take a listen. I'm going to add a little bit of, let's add a little bit of posh to this right here. I love that word. And I'm going to crank the style up a little bit and a little bit more low end here with the bass knob. Bass control. Okay, now this looks good. It sounds good actually too, because when I open my distortion metering, notice that the frequencies, there wasn't a lot of red action going on here. A lot of the frequency range, full frequency range in this is passing through great. So there's a little bit of brightness there, but there aren't these solid bands popping up everywhere in this section of the song. So I keep an eye on stuff like that. The more you use Smart Limit or any plugin, the more you'll get used to its personality. Does Smart Limit have a personality? Yeah, it really does. All of Sonible's plugins have this unique look and vibe to it, which I've come to love. I love the black and the green, and it's great. We're using Smart Reverb or Smart Comp or Smart Limit. This is just really awesome. Okay, now another thing I should mention here is the settings. When you open this up, there are some parameters here. Show loudness monitoring at startup, tooltips, OpenGL, depending on your system, but it has show tutorial. When you first install Smart Limit, it's going to walk you through a tutorial, which is super handy, and please don't skip through it. I mean, take a minute or two to read it. But if you didn't, or you need to go back and review it, just open up your settings and you can click on Show Tutorial here. It also gives you your license information too. All right. So we've covered quite a bit here. And I want to thank everyone for joining me here on Let's Talk Live on Music Marketing TV and kicking some tires, if you will, with Sonible's Smart Limit AI True Peak Limiter. It's a content-aware limiter because, as we said, depending on the different kind of audio you put in here, there's a setting just for you, and you can use it to set your audio, check your audio, and then publish your audio and have confidence that it's going to sound great on any one of these streaming platforms at any time. So if you're able to join us live tonight, thank you so much. Thank you, Sonible. Thank you, Music Marketing TV. My name's Carlo Libertini. We do this often, so definitely subscribe, sign up to Music Marketing TV, get access to hundreds, if not thousands of videos and future live streams like this in the future. So leave your creative comments below. Love to hear what you think about Sonible and Smart Limit or any ideas you might have yourselves in the comments in the future when you're able to watch this at your own time or rewatch it again in the future. So thank you for joining me, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Stay busy and stay creative, everyone. And thanks a million.